We are live. Let's see. Stream health is looking healthy. Excellent connection. Live! Exclamation mark. Cool. So, welcome. Today we're gonna do some unboxing. These beans over here from Kaffebox is what we're gonna unbox. And we're also going to do something called cupping, which is to compare and contrast the different beans to each other and really get a good feel for what these beans have to offer. And a lot of roasters do this quite often, actually, to compare a wide selection of coffee beans to each other so that they can better roast the bean, understand its qualities, and also just understand what they want to roast more or less from, or if they want to source a bean more often. So it's a great way to compare a lot of beans to each other. Morning, Sasha. How's it going? But yeah, cupping is one of those things that isn't really used that much at home with a home brewer like myself, because you don't want to cup just one or two beans ideally. Usually it's like a whole fleet of coffee beans, let's say 10 different roast levels or varietals or origins, and you're comparing them to each other so that you can make your decision on your next purchase. But cupping is, in my opinion, a really good way if you have multiple beans at home to really just compare them to each other at a very subjective level. So yeah, let's begin by unboxing this guy. Here, I'll bring you down like so. Cool. So let's see. This is the label, pretty red. I'll make some more space in the center here for now, like so. Let's see, yeah, in the post it got kind of like crushed, but that's how it is. Beans don't really get crushed, so I don't care too much. Okay. Branding on the inside too. So we got some beans from Damateo. Or Damateo, yeah. I'll read the labels in a moment, but let's just see what's in here. So we got two. Oh, this is super cute. So it's kind of like two mini journals for tasting. Has aroma, acidity, sweetness, body, and flavor. And kind of like a checklist over here, and some notes, and all of these stats for the bean. This is really rad. What's this guy? It's a sheet of paper. Packing paper. Kaffebox. Okay, cool. Let's look a bit more closer at these beans over here. So nice. It's all in English on this side, but on this side, it's in Swedish. I can translate some of this for you for fun. So here it says, smell here. Press on the bag so you can smell the coffee's aroma. Right over here. Normally these are just for the degassing of the beans, but they've made it a mini event to smell your coffee, which everyone uses it for anyways. Let's see. These beans are from Kenya, and these guys are from Colombia. Cool. So we have a Kenyan and we have a Colombian. So reading the Kenyan one, it says Arabica type SL28, SL34, and this is just all of the different varietals that the bean is, and the method is washed, and it's an altitude of 1,900, which is pretty high up, meaning the bean density will be nice and solid. So the beans are harvested October 2020 to Feb 2021. So that was when the green beans were harvested from the farm. Let's see. This is also interesting. They're giving you a dry aroma and wet aroma kind of like profile. And they're also giving you the type of water you have and how it will affect the tasting notes. I feel like this is a lot of solid stuff that could be used if you know what your water quality is, you know? Right now, it's not the most friendly for beginner roasters or beginner brewers that don't know if they have soft to medium or medium to hard water, for example. But yeah, that's pretty rad. So we're not going to look at the tasting notes for now. We'll figure that out on our own. So we got in the Colombian beans, they're called Manos Juntas. This one's called Meringue A Double. So here we have Castillo Colombia F6 process method natural, which is interesting. So these are beans that have had more coffee cherry husk on the bean as they were drying out, which will probably make them a bit more funky, which is what the process method is. So the natural process method is when you have a bit more of the bean cherry on the seed when it's drying out to infuse a bit more funk and interest and weird acidities in there. So we got an altitude of 2,000, harvested May to August 2020. And here again we got the different water types that you should be using and what you will be expecting from those. Cool. That's right, so let's open it up and look at the beans. Very aromatic going on here. Let's see if I can pour it out. Here we got the Kenyan beans. I'll get another cup for the Colombian beans. So when I look at beans, what am I looking for? I'm looking at the uniformity of the roast level, the size of the coffee bean also, and also just any visual weirdnesses to it. So just looking at these two, for example, I can tell that this one is extremely uniform. It kind of even looks like unnatural to a point, which is amazing. So this one is roasted extremely light compared to this one over here, which is like a light to medium. Or I would say both of them are pretty light, but this one is like extremely light. Like, oh my god, this, I've never seen like this type of color before. It looks like Nutella. That's the type of brown that I'm looking at right now. While this is a bit more of a not so uniform color. And it has a bit more kind of like dark spots in it too. Interesting. Okay. So let's begin the cupping. So cupping process, pretty simple. We're gonna use a brewing ratio of 1:18. We'll be using 8 grams of coffee and 144 grams of water. The brew time will be 4 minutes, and after the brew time, we will break the crust and scoop off all of the top grinds, and then we'll wait 10 minutes. And then we slurp and sip our coffee and enjoy it. So let's do that process. So the grind size that we'll be using is something close to a Hario V60, like fine grinds, and I'll show it to you once I've ground it a bit. But it's more on the finer side of things. First, I'll purge my grinder. And if you have any questions during this process, let me know. It's kind of complicated if you've never done a cupping before, but it's very simple and like you don't need a lot of tools, and it's like a very easy process to do once you get into it. Like so. So we'll measure out 8 grams. Cupping grind size. Yeah, I'll show it to you. Let's see. So it's pretty fine, the cupping grind size. Got this handy dandy tool over here. Gonna take some of these grinds, pour it on my hand, and what you can realize is that it's way finer than like French press, for example. And if I use this over here, it goes straight through those areas. So the 800, 700, let's try even finer. 600. Okay, so seeing where the majority of grinds stick and stay, it's around 600 to 700 microns probably for the grind size of a cupping. That is what I am using over here. And for the cupping process, you do need a pretty fine grind, but not like espresso grind, meaning you shouldn't be using a grind that is like powder-like, just a bit coarser for sure. But yeah, 600 to 700 microns is what I would use for a cupping session. So we actually have a bit too much grinds here. There we go, 8 grams of coffee. We take the 8 grams of coffee and we toss it into a bowl that can hold around 150 milligrams of water, like so. And what I like to do is either put the coffee bag beside it or a batch of beans like this beside it, so you know what bowl is what. Now let's do the same thing for the Colombian beans. I think down the road, I would love to do this together with people, meaning having like a Zoom event or something where we all do the cupping together and taste together and talk about it, because that would be really rad. Like right now you guys are just staring at me doing the cupping, but it would be so cool if you guys were also doing the cupping with me. That would be rad. So cool. Where's the grinder? I know, so cool. So I've actually done it before with some people, so I've taught coffee seminars before, but I think this would be a really cool reoccurring thing to have on the channel, where somehow I can like align the people who are getting the coffee subscription with like a Zoom link of sorts, and then you guys can just join in and cup together and we'll troubleshoot a bit and figure it out. So yeah, I'll have to figure out the logistics of it, but if that was a monthly thing, that would be really fun. So I'm always purging and making sure that all of the grinds that come into the 8 grams here is the bean. So making sure that I flush it with some fresh beans and then fully clean it up, because you don't want to have any remnants of old grinds in this small 8 gram dose that you have. So I'm being extra vigilant with that. Pour this into that bowl, and just looking at the grinds, looks great. Now, the process or the brewing steps, like how you pour water, is extremely simple. So I'll go and get my boiling water and let's begin. So I have a timer. I pour all the water, trying to saturate all of the grinds at the same time. And what I'm doing is that I'm just pouring straight up to 144 grams of water and then letting it set. And instead of, yeah, let's just go for it. So I start this timer and I just pour, trying to saturate all the grinds. And once we hit 144, we stop, we move that aside, and we do the same thing with this one. Like so. And that's all we need the scale for. And now we actually just wait until the 4-minute mark, where we do something with 2 spoons to scoop off all the excess crust and scum that is on top of the coffee over here, so that we can get to the coffee below. So to prepare for that, I have a extra cup and I add some hot water to it, like so. And I also have 2 spoons. And now it's just a waiting game. So I also have this other handy dandy learning tool here that I've gotten and enjoyed a lot in the past, and this is a coffee flavor map. So this over here shows you a lot of different common flavors that you can find in coffee, and what it does is it has these mini vials with the scent in it. So for example, if I want to know how an apple smells like, I go to 32, the vial, and the vial looks something like this. I open that up and I smell it. Apple. So this is like a very candied apple, in my opinion. It's kind of like very in your face, intrusive, kind of chemically apple. But it's an apple for sure. And this is a great way to train your taste buds, because your taste buds, here, let me move it up over here since I'm talking. So your taste buds, interestingly enough, isn't the only thing that is tasting your coffee. It's actually the olfactory nerves up top in your mouth that is also giving you the granularity of tasting. So you only taste the basic senses with your tongue, but those nuances are actually scent particles that are being received at the top of your roof. So it's a balance of a lot of different things. So taste, overall taste, comes from 3 different areas: your tongue, the olfactory nerves up in your roof, and also the mouthfeel of your liquid. So just being able to like understand those qualities, and if you want to train it, you can use things like these tools over here, or you can just be extremely conscious when you eat like an apple, for example. Take a bite in there and really understand the acidities that you're tasting, enjoy it a bit more, slow down, and yeah. Okay, so we're at the 4-minute mark. Let's do this. Go down over here. The first thing we do is we break the crust and we smell it. So we do something like this. And then we purge the spoon, and then we do it this side. Okay, it's kind of just to get a good first impression of it. And now we take the 2 spoons and we kind of treat it as 2 claws, and we go from the furthest area of the bowl and we slowly scoop off the top layer. like so. And then we dip that in the hot water. And you can repeat this a couple more times to make sure you get everything off of the top. It doesn't have to be perfect though. Then we repeat this process with this bowl. And there we go. We have 2 bowls that are ready to be slurped soon. So we're gonna wait actually 10 minutes until it cools down. That is what most people recommend, and that's what I'm gonna do too, because if the liquid is too hot, it's just gonna burn your tongue and you're not gonna taste those delicate notes that we're trying to experience from these coffees over here. So it will just be a bad experience if we jump in right now and start sipping them. So I have something called a cupping spoon. It looks like so. It's really just a glorified spoon that has a big surface area over here. And when you take some liquid, you'll just slurp it to spray it into your mouth to cool the liquid down even further. And yeah, it's a very glorified spoon over here. You can use a regular spoon if you have that. But overall, I must say I'm extremely surprised by the Colombian beans. I was not expecting this type of a light roast uniformity, and to double it up, it's a natural processed bean, meaning that it will probably be very funky and interesting when we are tasting it. That is my initial guess with the stats of the coffee bag and just how it looks like. We got a question here. Do you have a preferred drying process for the beans? I actually prefer, I drink washed all the time, so that is something that is always there. But I do prefer honey a bit more. It has a bit more of a interesting body. I'm not that big of a fan of a natural. I've never found a natural where I was head over heels with it, so honey is probably what I would pick out in a lineup, but I drink washed the most. So the differences are, let's go up here. So the processing method is just how much coffee cherry is on the bean when it's drying out. So washed is fully clean. It's like you've removed all of the coffee cherry from the bean and it's drying on its own and it's doing its own thing. Well, honey is a bit of the coffee cherry is still on the coffee seed when it's drying out, which makes it so that the coffee cherry kind of like infuses the seed with some of its elements. Well, natural is when a lot of the coffee cherry is on the seed and it's really fermenting and drying and getting a lot of funky flavors into the coffee beans. So for me, I enjoy honey the most, which is in the middle, but the beans that I usually get are actually washed most of the time. I guess that's just the easier process method that people use, and to be honest, I enjoy a clean, crisp cup. When you get more into the honey and natural, you'll start getting more funky and interesting acidity. So like pineapple, for example, is very easy to kind of like get, or like a intense acidity in the honey and natural realm. But yeah, I like washed. I'm a simple guy. Yeah, so we got couple more minutes, so let's smell another thing. Okay, I just opened it up randomly. We got yogurt over here. Let's smell yogurt. So yogurt is like the slight milky feel, but it has a slight tang to it. So it's a bit sharp on your nose when you're taking a sniff. It's also kind of like a chocolate that doesn't have any sweetness too. That's kind of like what I'm imagining when I'm smelling yogurt in my vial over here. But also that initial slight zing that it has is also kind of like prominent. Yogurt. Back in the day, I used to take these vials and I used to slowly just practice with them. So I would take out one vial, put it in front of me and be like, okay, so let's smell this. I know that smell. And then I'll take another one and I'll smell that one again. And I'll smell the new one. And then I'll shuffle them around and then I'll do it again. And just like really familiarize myself with the differences between scents. Because if you haven't really experienced something, then how can you explain it in your cup of coffee? The only way you would explain it would be through this tastes good or bad, or I like this or I don't like this. But once you get some kind of a foundation on how to describe words and the things that you're tasting, then that opens up a whole new like way of explaining your coffee. So I also have this coffee flavor wheel. That is also very handy. So it just has a lot of the common coffee tasting notes in coffee. You can find this online just searching coffee flavor wheel, but being able to put a word to what you're tasting is, in my opinion, a big step towards getting better at tasting. Okay, we're getting close to the slurpy slurp. I'm actually going to go and get an extra cup and get my water ready because I want to hydrate myself too. BRB. Okay, so we got our water. We also have another cup where we're going to pour some of that water in, like so. And whenever I move my cupping spoon between bowls, I'm just going to dip it into this cup over here and fully purge it. So that'll be right over here. And as a final thing, notebook with notes. So we got the Colombian over here and we got the Kenyan over there. And it's now time to slurp. So let's do it. Moving down. Like so. Okay, so it's closing in on the 15-minute mark. So That is 4 minutes of brew time and around 11 minutes now of just sitting and chilling. Timer is done. Let's begin. So when I begin, I personally don't try to like figure something out right away. Think of it as like a first date. You're just getting to know the cup. So just slurp it, see what you're feeling, see if it's good or bad, right? That's it. But as we taste these cups further, then we can start really honing in on what we want to like understand from it or what it's giving us. So what we do is we take a bit of the liquid on our spoon and we slurp it. Cool. And if there are tons of other cups there, I would probably use something called a spit cup, which would be like a paper cup that I would spit out the liquid into, because after a while you'll be quite fatigued with the amount of coffee that you drink. But since I'm just using 2 bowls over here, I have no issue with just drinking this liquid over here. And I haven't had my coffee this morning, so it would be nice to have some coffee. Yeah, so a grind size of 600 to 700 microns. That's around the grind size I would use for a cupping. If you want, you can look at the replay afterwards and see the grind size and how I like put it through my hands and the brewer. And then we'll slurp this one. Ooh. So, quick first impressions. Kind of funky tang. Really interesting juiciness going on over here. But I'm kind of curious about this tang a bit more. This one, I feel like, has already gotten on my good side because of that interesting sweetness and juiciness that it's been giving off, that it gave me in the first sip. So for now, I want to go back into this cup and really just hone in. So before I do that, I'm just gonna write down quickly: juicy, sweet, weird tang, but it's alluring. Like so. I usually just drink 1 cup of coffee every day. When I used to be a barista, it used to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 in a shift, because you constantly need to taste things and you're just there, so you make coffee for yourself all the time. But now that I'm at home and I'm not in the barista life, I drink 1 cup of coffee, maybe 2, if I go out to a cafe and I want to try their coffee. But yeah, that's how much coffee I drink every day. So this one, I feel like, is it's like a weird bitterness to it. It has like a vegetal bitterness that I'm experiencing here. Okay, enough of that one. Let's go back to this one. I'm just drinking some water to fully purge my mouth. Sparkling would be nice. so the juiciness is very berry-like. That's what I'm experiencing over here. Berry-like. And for the Colombian, it had like this vegetal bitterness. So, after second impressions, I would say I'm really enjoying the Kenyan beans over here. This one still has some interest to it, but I wonder if maybe the delicate body is kind of highlighting it a bit too much. So in my mind, if I would brew this, I would probably use maybe like a metal filter or like a brewing method with a low brewing ratio to bring in more of the body to support the taste of the coffee. While on this one over here, I'm really enjoying the tastes of that I'm getting, like the juiciness, the berry-like sweetness, and it has a lot of positive tastes to it. So I would probably use a higher brewing ratio brewing device to get that more tea-like texture and mouthfeel to then highlight those tastes. Andre, do I like sparkling water? Yeah, I kind of like sparkling water. I don't have it in my household, but it's fun. I have kombucha in my place, so that's kind of like sparkling. Okay, let's go in for the third go here. Now, what I want to get out of it is try to really hone in on something very specific. How is the body of this liquid? Like, is it... I've already said juicy over here, but what kind of body does the Colombian bean have is what I'm curious about. So I'm gonna go in with that mental note in mind, and I'm gonna try to really figure out what I am tasting and how it's interacting with my mouth and its viscosity. So now that it's cooling down a bit and I'm tasting it a bit more, I'm getting like nutty notes too. So let's write that down. Nutty. Which is interesting. Let's go for it again. Mouthfeel, mouthfeel. Yeah, I feel like it's not as silky smooth as this one. It's a bit more of a slightly heavier body. A bit more like who. So, a bit more thicker body. Thicker slash hardier. I want to actually go in here again and taste that nuttiness and see if I can find more of the nut family, or maybe I can pinpoint some type of nut. Let's see. And yet again, whenever you're tasting like this, the goal is to link whatever you're tasting to something you've experienced in real life. That's when you know that the taste is a positive taste and it's not a negative taste that comes from the extraction. Because when it's bitterness from the extraction, it's just a bad, harsh bitterness. When it's sourness from the extraction, it's just a harsh, annoying sourness. But if it's a acidity from the sourness, it's something that you can link to the real world and put a word to. If that is the case, then that is a positive acidity in your cup. Yeah, this one is not as prominent with flavors as I expected it to be as a natural light roast bean. Okay, enough of that one. Let's go back to the Kenyan one for the final taster here. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the just this juicy like body and sweetness that is happening over here. So berry like sweetness, nice and juicy body. Yeah, it's yummy. Okay. Done. Cupping complete. What do I think so far? I think, yet again, the Kenyan bean, these guys over here, had a really delicious body to it. It had good sweetnesses. It had berry-like tasting notes. And I can see it as a delicious cup of coffee with a pour-over device and the higher brewing ratios, because then we can highlight those tastes and bring them forth and not have the body of the coffee overshadow those tastes. So when I'm going to brew with this, I'll probably use a Hario V60, and I'll probably also use a fabric filter to get some more of those oils to see if... Actually, no, I lied. I'll use a paper filter to really focus in on those tastes. So the paper filter will remove all of the oils, making the body kind of like non-existent, so more tea-like, and really focus on those flavors that I'm getting from the cup. So here we got the Colombian beans. Now this one was a bit more of a weird one. So it had nutty notes at the latter parts of the taste, but I was also getting this weird vegetal bitterness in there. And in my opinion, this would actually be better at a lower brewing ratio, or with something that incorporates a bit more of the coffee body in there to balance out those weird and funky tastes a bit, to give the coffee a bit more of a different aspect that it can like rely on to make it a good cup of coffee. And I do think that the body of this one was a bit thicker than the Kenyan one. So to emphasize that, I'll probably use something like a French press or a immersion brewer or like an AeroPress to control time a bit more and elongate it so that the thickness of the body will be a bit more of the emphasis in my cup. And that is the cupping session. Like, there is not a lot of magic to it. You just need to taste your coffee and write down like some notes on what you're tasting. But it's a really great way to compare coffees to each other and get a quick overview of what you're tasting and kind of like where you want to take it. So I could initially like look at the label and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna brew with this brewing device. But after a cupping session, you really get to understand the beans and how they've been roasted and their uh, varietals and the tastes that you're getting, and then you can couple that together with the brewing device to really link that together and try to maximize that quality of the bean, because a label doesn't always say and tell the whole story. Like, I can read this and I can be like, oh yeah, buttery croissant, like, come on, lemon curd and black currant. It's very interesting here where it's very, like, it's hard to describe, and it's just hard to like get anything from tasting notes. So that was the wet aroma, but taste profile is creamy notes with black currant, violet, and raspberry. So from my tasting experience, I got the berry-like in there. I got the creamy slash juiciness in there, but it was like more of the things that I was tasting and not like these tasting notes that are official, like they are made well, but it's really hard to get a good understanding of the bean from just tasting notes. So I'm really curious about what they put tasting notes for the Colombian one. Okay, so we got creamy with notes of vanilla, candied strawberry, and praline. What is praline? Pralines. I'm gonna look that up. Like, I didn't get candied strawberries or vanilla. I got something else, which is totally fine. So taste is very subjective, and if you're getting something, just say that experience, say what you're tasting. You don't need to like worry about what other people are thinking of. A lot of the times it's a personal experience too, where maybe in your childhood you were eating this candy and this taste reminds you of that candy, or you were your parents always gave you like a veggie and there is this very specific veggie that you've been tasting. Like, there's a lot of personal experience when it comes to tasting. So just to grow that experience, you just need to try more things in your life and really open up that spectrum of taste bud experiences. So praline. Okay, so praline is a form of confection containing a minimum culinary nuts, usually almonds and hazelnut, and sugar. So this is interesting. So I was getting some nutty flavors in there too, and praline looks like this. I don't know if you can see that. So it's kind of like nuts with coated sweetness, sugar. And I was for sure getting the nuttiness, but I wasn't getting that much sweetness in it. So in the tasting notes, it was saying a lot of things like candy strawberry and praline, where those two, in my mind, are like fortified sweetness items. So candied strawberry has a heightened strawberry sweetness with extra like sugar candy elements, and praline is nuts that are coated with sugar. So there's a lot of sweetness over here that I am not experiencing. Maybe because I'm looking at the soft to medium, but I don't think my water is medium hard. So let's look at that side. Dark chocolate, strawberry, tart, and red wine. That is probably a bit more close to what I've been tasting. But I do have the nuttiness from the other side. Let's head over here. Red berry tarte, chocolate mousse, and marzipan. This is the thing that I hate about tasting notes. They're so convoluted. They're so fluffy. Yeah. Taste it for yourself and just try to put it into words. And it doesn't need to be fancy words. It just needs to be what you enjoy. So yeah, that is the cupping session. I hope you've had fun. And I totally want to do this down the road with more people. So I've done it before in the past in like a Zoom call where everyone is cupping and I'm kind of like taking people through the steps. And I think that would be so rad with like a monthly cupping kind of like seminar that people could join and be a part of the process and follow along and taste these things, because me just explaining it to the camera isn't really giving justice to what's happening over here with the cups. So down the road, communal cupping monthly perhaps, that would be really rad. So yeah, after this live stream over here, I actually have a video being posted in 5 minutes, and it's about mayo and coffee. So last live stream, I tried out mayo and coffee, and I just whipped together a video explaining the whole process, explaining the tweet that was done by Hellman's, and just some extra like notes here and there, and also just my thoughts on that whole kerfuffle or the mayo and coffee kind of like experience. So make sure to check that out right after this, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I don't know what coffee I'll be drinking first. I kind of want to experiment with this one, but this one currently has my heart. So I'm gonna start off with the Kenyan, the delicious one that I've been enjoying in the cupping session. Okay, so take care everyone, have a great day. Have a stellar Monday. Take care everyone. See ya.